finished listening to Haddon Robinson's book on preaching the other day, and he talked about three kinds of preaching, and I'm going to apply that to teaching. The first is the kind of preaching that you can't remember. And that kind of teaching is almost worthless. I mean, if I can't remember what you said, what value is it for me? The second kind of teaching is teaching that I have to work to remember. And the third kind of teaching is the kind of teaching that I can't forget. And that's the kind of teacher you want to be. A kind of teacher that teaches in a way that people cannot keep from forgetting that what you said. They don't have to work at it. They don't have to struggle with it. They don't have to strive at it. It just comes to their brain. And one of the ways we do that is to teach like Jesus. And that is to teach in short, pithy little phrases. And I don't always come up with a good one, but I thought this week was pretty good. And so here is the big idea that I want you to try to communicate to your people this week. And that is, we don't have to see eye to eye to walk side by side. Would you say it with me? We don't have to see eye to eye to walk side by side. I open with a video you may or may not want to use, but the message of the video is by J.D. Greear, the president of the Southern Baptist Convention, and he talks about how his vision for the Southern Baptist Convention is to be kind of a big tent organization. And I think that is a good vision for us. The idea that we don't have to agree on every jot and tittle to sit down and have dinner together or to work together as a denomination. And I contrast that with a conversation I had with a friend of mine a few months back. And as you know, I write Bible study lessons for a living, and most of them for like approximate curriculum outlines. But I have one particular guy that's an elder, a lay elder at a Presbyterian church. And about every 6 weeks, he teaches what we would call a large Sunday school class. I'm going to call it something else, but anyway. Anyway, we've gotten to be a bit of friends over the years. And I was asking him one time about Presbyterians and the various denominations and so on, and he's quite knowledgeable. I was really impressed. And I'm going to put a slide on the screen here. And he went through this denomination, started here, and then this location, and this was a key leader, and then they split over this issue, and now there's two denominations, and then this group got back together, and this other group split, and this other group split, and this other group split, and this other group split. And that's why you got so many denominations. My one son is ordained last week in the Presbyterian denomination, PCA, 1,300 churches nationwide, I believe. And most Presbyterian denominations are kind of like that. They're quite small. And my son, the other son, was explaining to me the reason for that is there is a belief behind the belief. You see, they split over certain beliefs, but they all agree on one thing. And what they agree on is we got to see eye to eye in order to walk side by side. And I want to argue, according to the passage we're going to look at today, you don't actually have to see eye to eye to walk side by side. That in Presbyterian world, there's this underlying belief that we have to agree on every jot and tittle. And if we don't agree on every jot and tittle, then we can't walk together. And I think we need to be very careful about avoiding that kind of thinking. And this shows up in theological issues. It shows up in church issues. It shows up in normal issues. I wonder if you've ever had the experiences I've had, where you were in, say, the backseat of a car with a couple, and let's say he's driving and he turns left somewhere, and she says to him, "Why'd you turn left there?" And he says, "Well, this is the way I wanted to go." "Well, it's better to go this other way." And they get in some big squabble over something stupid. And it happens all the time, where she spends a little bit of money on something, and maybe it's not a great deal of money. And he says, "Why did you spend the money on that?" And I say to my wife, if you want to spend a small amount of money on stupid stuff, you can do so. And she lets me spend probably more than a small amount of money on stupid stuff. And we came to an agreement a long time ago. We don't have to see eye to eye to walk side by side. We don't have to agree on everything. I think it was Bill Gothard years ago that said, where two people agree on everything, one of them is not necessary. All right, so let's dive into our text. Romans 14, we're going to look at beginning in verse 1. Except the one whose faith is weak, without quarreling over disputable matters. There are a gazillion disputable matters, only a few main things, but a gazillion disputable matters. And he says, don't quarrel about those disputable matters. You see, this word translated "except" is translated a wide variety of ways. This chart, I'll show you these charts pretty regularly, by the way, generated by Logos Bible software. And that's what I call a vertical word study, where we'll go down into the Greek and ask the question, how is this word translated in other places where it is used? And you have to choose one particular translation. You can choose from among a dozen or so. But this happens to be the NIV. And you can see where it's translated "accepted" in this case, "welcome," "took aside," "rounded up." Notice this one on the right side, "you haven't eaten anything, and the one before ate. And one of the ways we show acceptance to one another is we eat together. It reminds me of my mom when I travel. She'll always say, "Have you had something to eat?" And it's a expression of acceptance. This Greek dictionary says to receive to oneself, to admit to one's